Kurt Bardella, the former spokesperson and senior advisor for Republicans on the House Oversight Committee back in the day, who's now an advisor to the DNC, writes in The Atlantic, Democrats must now answer the call and elevate their best communicators. After all, the number one mission of the Democratic minority should be communications. Obvious candidates for the top jobs on oversight and judiciary include Jamie Raskin and David Cicilline. And Kurt Bardella joins me now, along with Charles Blow, New York Times columnist and MSNBC political analyst. I'm going to start with you, Kurt, because you wrote the article. You've seen what it looks like when Republicans go wild on oversight, and that is going to be the committee where all the crazy is going to take place. What should Democrats do?
They need to match up. You know, back in 2010, when Republicans took back Congress after that election, Democrats actually realized they were in some deep water. They knew that they needed to make a change. So they ditched the seniority system. They benched Ed Towns, who was a ranking Democrat at the time, and replaced him with a guy named Elijah Cummings. Now, I can tell you, us at the Oversight Committee Republicans, we were not happy about this. Yeah. Cummings was a brilliant tactician, an amazing communicator, and we knew that he could get the best of us, that he could win on that dais, on those hearings. Well, now here we are in a similar situation, and there's a competition right now for who's going to lead the Oversight Committee. Is it going to be Jamie Raskin? Is it going to be someone like Jerry Connolly or Stephen Lynch? Democrats need to put forward the best person for the job, who knows how to fight these MAGA Republicans. And in my opinion, Jamie Raskin is the best person we could have leading the Oversight Committee. Same thing at Judiciary Committee. And nothing against Jerry Nadler, who's led the committee very well for a long time. But I think this is the time where we need to reset. Someone like David Cicilline, a fighter, a brawler, someone who knows that we are going to be in a street fight against the Jim Jordans, against the Comers, against the Marjorie Taylor Greens, who's angling to get on the Oversight Committee. We know Kevin McCarthy cannot control these people. No. We know, as Oscar Wilde once said, when the gods wish to punish us, they answer our prayers. Well, Kevin's about to find out what that's like.
He's going to be living in hell. Yeah. If he ain't drinking now, he's going to be drinking. Charles, let me get you in here, because let me just show you a collage. This is the House Republican. This is their official Twitter account, which we know Twitter is at this point an anemic sort of, dying monster. But they tweeted this: Hunter Biden's laptop is real. Joe Biden is the big guy. The Biden crime family must be investigated as matter of national security. Like, they're freaking out. The vast majority of Americans couldn't pick Hunter Biden out of a lineup. They don't care about him. He's in a lot of ways, he's a tragic figure. I mean, this is someone who had dealing with addiction and was dealing with a lot of personal issues. If anything, what you know about him makes you feel bad for him. And they've decided to turn him into their new Hillary Clinton, right? Their obsession. We had this conversation, just among the team earlier. Give us some advice, Charles Blow. You're an intellectual giant of the journalistic world. How should we deal with this? Because part of me wants to ignore it. Part of me wants to laugh at it. I'm in between those two. What do you think we as the media should be doing with all these ridiculous investigations to come?
Well, I'm going to stay on the politicians first before we get to the media. Okay. I actually believe that the best strategy here is to stay on policy and to let them put on a show and to tell Americans constantly that it's a show. It is very hard for them to make the case that Hunter Biden did something wrong and benefited from the family name, when in every one of the Trumps did exactly that. So it doesn't help them in their argument as much as it would someone who was not running against Donald Trump. And that seems like it's going to be the matchup in 2024. And all of this is theatrics and blowing of smoke and fishing to try to damage Joe Biden for 2024. That's what the entire exercise is about. So I don't think it works as well. They could have had, if they weren't going to stick on the crime and inflation numbers and stick more to what Trump, did in 2016, which is demonize people, right? Talk about crimes and evoke black people and immigrants. Talk about the border. They are coming to replace. That actually was a more effective strategy. And with the new leadership that's coming in the House, they would have people to point to. This is just devil's advocate. It's not what I would want to do, but that actually works for that base. This thing, of trying to make this person, Hunter Biden, into some giant boogeyman in charge of a giant conspiracy to get all the money from all the foreign leaders and foreign companies, it just doesn't land. It doesn't have a victim in the same way that Benghazi had real victims. And even if Hillary Clinton wasn't responsible for it, you could have a family come forward and say, you know, I'm hurting and I want more answers. And that helps to propel that narrative. They don't have that here. So it just becomes a very hard sell to the American people, I believe.
Yeah, and I mean, the only person who was hurt by the Benghazi hearings was Kevin McCarthy. He got chased out of his first attempt to become speaker because he blabbed that the whole purpose, he gave away the whole thing like a Scooby-Doo villain and said, you know, this Benghazi thing is going to destroy Hillary Clinton. She won't be able to run for president. Everybody was like, you're too stupid to be speaker. Go away, right? So it only hurt him. In the end, it didn't hurt Hillary. She testified for 11 hours. People were like, boss, right? And so, I mean, I guess to come back to you on this, Kurt, I mean, Democrats won't be able to pass anything through the House. Okay, nothing is passing the House, right? Nothing's going through.
Right.
And so Democrats, like you said, are going to have to be on defense, in a sense, fighting against this craziness. And then the media has to decide, do you look at the crazy and debunk it? Or do we just ignore the House of Representatives, since no legislation is coming out of there, and let the progressives talk about the things they would like to be doing if there was a real Congress?
Well, I can tell you the Republicans are banking on the fact that the media won't have that kind of discipline, that they will chase the subpoenas, they will chase the press releases, they will chase the press conference, they will chase the hearings. That's what the Republicans are hoping will happen. I think for Democrats, we have to tell the story. We have to point out the hypocrisy. You can't talk about a presidential office and a presidential family benefiting financially from the office without talking about the first family of the Trumps, without talking about Jared's billion-dollar Saudi Arabia deal, without talking about what just came out last week from the Oversight Committee, that Trump's foreign hotels, that foreign countries were bilking the taxpayers, spending money after money after money trying to enrich Donald Trump personally. You can't talk about malfeasance without talking about how Trump mishandled classified information. You can't talk about finances without talking about Trump's refusal to turn over his tax returns. That's the story and the context that Democrats have to tell. And if the media is going to chase this catnip, then they have to tell the story with the full context of what Republicans ignored. And, oh, by the way, you don't get to say you want your subpoenas enforced when you spent the last 4 years ignoring congressional subpoenas.
And by the way, I can tell you who's not going to be chasing their little subpoenas and their little story. Moi.